Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Buer kicking off a 50-cent pick five at Kentucky Downs on Sunday with this race, race number 7. They're only giving away $1 million for the Kentucky Downs Juvenile Mile. 2-year-olds. And guess what? They're going a mile on the turf. And guess what? There's a big field for $1 million. 12 horses in the body of the race. 13 through 15 also eligibles. Some of these 2-year-olds have flashed some promise.
Yeah, there are a few interesting horses in here for sure. I mean, listen, they're putting up a ton of money, Dan, so it's not surprising that these horses are going to chase it a little bit. We'll see who handles this quirky turf course.
Curious to see where the pace is going to come from in the juvenile mile. You've got several horses stretching out in distance. We throw out the Timeform US pace projector. I was surprised, Mike, in looking over this field that for these 2-year-olds, there really aren't a ton of blazers in here. I'm Out of Here was a pace pressing winner going a mile at Ellis Park last time out. Reach for the Rose has shown some speed, but it's not like there are some zippy 2-year-olds that you're used to seeing this time of year.
Yeah, it's true. Usually, it feels like you almost always get tons of horses or a bunch of horses stretching out in a race like this, Dan, with a lot of speed. And I'm not really seeing that in this field. That being said, they have I'm Otter here on the lead in this race, and he did press some pretty solid fractions last time.
The number 1, the Brigade, has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. And we'll kick off our analysis with the Brigade. 20-1 on the morning line, improved second time out, going synthetic to turf and sprint to route. But it's worth noting he was the only experienced horse in a race full of first-time starters. The 4th place horse came back to place at Colonial with a 56 buyer.
Yeah, I'm wondering what he really beat in the turf debut last time. I mean, I'll give him the credit he deserves for stretching out 3 furlongs from start 1 to start 2, doing it off a little bit of a layoff and getting the job done. But I feel like he might have beat a pretty hungry field that day with a good trip, and the race didn't come back particularly fast.
The number 2, Emmett, made a successful career debut at Gulfstream Park on the synthetic surface. It was nice to see him win this race at 1 mile and 70 yards. Never easy for first-time starters to win going 2 turns. And Emmett still has a lot of work to do coming down to the 8th pole. You could tell why they debuted him going a distance of ground. He's reaching out for more. I just did not like the field he beat, and now he has to switch to turf.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's just a ton working against him. I mean, I guess if you like the late run that he put in, and he did put in a pretty nice late run there in a slow race, I guess, listen, you just say they're switching surfaces with him here, and they're doing it at Kentucky Downs where anything can happen, and he'll be a huge price.
Turnbuckle is the number 3, and he's already started 6 times, so he's hardy, and he ran well last time out at Ellis Park, finishing second in a maiden special weight, but he lacks the upside of some of these horses, and he's just going to have to simply do better as he faces tougher.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I thought he was almost impossible to make a case for, all things being equal, Dan. And, at Kentucky Downs, all things aren't necessarily equal, but I don't like any of his races.
I really like the 4 Reach for the Roses debut at Gulfstream, going 5/8 of a mile. I thought this horse was a little bit green early and then over in behind horses at the end. He then graduated on dirt at Saratoga, and they ran him at Kentucky Downs last week in the juvenile sprint. All in all, the trip was there for this horse. He's rallying down on the inside. The race was won in gate-to-wire fashion. I think this horse has some potential.
He does. I haven't really seen his excuse though, Dan, in either of his 2 turf races. I mean, I get that they debuted him in a stakes race, but that wasn't a stakes race. 11 horses in there. They were all maidens. 9 of them were first-time starters. And he had a huge pace in front of him that they were flying, and he came along for a second. I don't know. I didn't love his debut, and I didn't love his last race. I just thought he got a really good trip and wasn't close to good enough.
I'm Outer here, like a lot of 2-year-old second-time starters, showed much improved early speed at Ellis Park, got up close to a solid pace, and was very professional putting the boots to them in the stretch. Respectable 76 buyer speed figure. We know this horse can handle a mile. We know he can be forwardly placed. Now we'll see if he can handle Kentucky Downs.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty big question, but he's run well in both of his starts. He got beat by a pretty good horse trying to close, sprinting first time out, and I really liked his last race. And again, that pace was solid. He pressed it all the way. He was very confident taking over around the final turn, and I liked the way he finished it off.
The number 6, West Beach, is still a maiden, but he ran pretty well last time out at Saratoga. Beaten in a slow-paced race, the 3rd-place finisher came back to win right here at Kentucky Downs with a 77 buyer speed figure. I did think West Beach had a pretty good trip in that race at Saratoga, however.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan. I mean, listen, he's run fine in both of his starts for Brendan Walsh, and I get it. Maybe he's just not really a sprinter. In his career debut, he got wired by a Wesley Ward horse, and he was only second best. I don't love the race that he's coming out of at Saratoga, and I didn't think he did anything particularly special. He just wasn't quite good enough.
The number 7 Forged Steel is another running son of a gun by that first crop sire Vacoma. It seems like they all can run. This horse was odds on in the debut on dirt, got beaten by a runaway, shows up on turf going 2 turns. He's the runaway, drawing off to win as he pleases with a 75 Beyer speed figure. I think this guy's going to show speed here.
Yeah, I do too. He could have been on the lead in this race. They made the front, then they conceded for no real reason, but they did. They conceded the lead, got to the outside. He's sprinting through the stretcher. I mean, he certainly looked like he really appreciated the surface switch second time out. I mean, I guess you won't find more disparate turf courses than Gulfstream and then going to Kentucky Downs. They're two totally different worlds. But if he runs that well here, he's going to be a handful.
The Count Is On is up next, also coming off of a maiden win at 7.5. This race was at Horseshoe, Indianapolis, and the Count Is On making his turf debut after being washed off in his first 2 starts. I thought worked out a pretty decent trip, sitting off of a pretty quick pace, but looked good in the final 16th.
Yeah, he got a great trip in this race. And he's very game though. He just runs away from this horse that he was stalking on the pace. I like the way he finishes this race off. They thought he was a turf horse from the start, and then when he got to surface switch, then he really ran in there. This horse was good.
Ready for Peace is the number 9, debut winner going a mile over the inner turf course at Colonial. Another situation where he was able to get up close to a pretty solid pace and wasn't speed crazy. Relaxed, finished up well, a nice building block performance for this race.
Yeah, for a really good trainer, he was very well prepared first time out. They knew he could run. They bet him down in that race, Dan, and I liked the way that he won. He's got a nice pedigree behind him too. Didn't think he was that hard to make a case for if this is where they run him, because he's also entered at Colonial.
Tistastic, the number 10, had the misfortune to face Chancer McPatrick in his career debut at Saratoga. That guy might be the best 2-year-old on the East Coast after winning the Grade 1 hopeful. We see Steve Asmussen train second-time starters pop, and he did so, Tistastic, at Kentucky Downs, and he did so in an allowance race. And I like how he rallied from off of the pace, Mike. This son of Tiz the Law has scope. He's a good-looking runner, and I have a feeling he's going to get the right setup.
Yeah, he's bred to go longer too, Dan. And I know 6.5. These races play long at Kentucky Downs, but this horse is bred to stretch out, and he's getting stronger at the end of this race. Really big, good-looking colt. He handled turf just fine. He's got plenty of pedigree behind him. It seems like Asmussen. I mean, you don't think of him as a turf trainer necessarily. He wins a lot of races at Kentucky Downs, though.
The 11 Micah is going to pick up Luis Saez, who was aboard for the debut try on dirt, where this horse didn't run very well, but certainly improved second time out. Stretching out from 4.5 furlongs to a mile isn't easy. Micah got it done. I thought he got a decent setup. The runner-up placed to Kentucky Downs in a maiden with a 63 Beyer.
Always give horses extra credit when they can stretch out like that and get the job done. This horse did it off a surface switch as well. We'll see, man. I mean, I expect that he's another horse who could take some money in here for Maker and Saez, but again, Maker's been pretty cold. His horses have not been running that well at Kentucky Downs so far.
Tough post for the 12 Kieran, who's going to stretch out 3 furlongs for his 3rd lifetime start. A debut winner on dirt. Ran just fine in his 2nd lifetime start. That was at Monmouth Park, the Tyro Stakes. 5/8 of a mile. Ran into a decent field, Mike. The runner-up came back to place 2nd in the Skidmore at Saratoga, and Kieran was churning on at the end.
Yeah, he never looks like he's really going to make a serious impact here, but he's clear in 3rd behind a couple of pretty nice 2-year-old sprinters, Dan. We'll see how much improvement he has in him, because he's got to run a lot better than that, and he's got to do it going longer.
Not really enamored with any of the 3 also eligibles, but if the 13 Homie gets into the race, he could certainly impact the pace at the very least.
I'd be interested in him getting in here and stretching out. He's got the pedigree to go long for a super dangerous trainer.
Let's take a look at our top selections. We're kicking off a 50-cent pick 5 with race number 7. You're going with Forged Steel over the 5. I'm going with I'm Outta Here over the 7, and I'm using both in multis.
Yeah, me too. I mean, this is a kind of a wide open race. I don't want to get too involved here. Forged Steel's probably not going to be a great price, but man, did he look good winning breaking his maiden last time.
I'm Outta Here showed much improved early speed 2nd time out. We'll see if he can carry it over this Kentucky Downs configuration, but I have a feeling he might offer a fair price at post time. 7596 for Mike, 5746 for me. It's the $1 million Kentucky Downs Juvenile Mile. Again, first leg 50 cent, pick 5, race 7 at the Downs on Sunday. Good luck.